was BBC's Vince Rogers speaking to Salma Al-Watani earlier today. He's been investigating penalty charge notices in the Royal Borough of Greenwich, as you heard there, after he himself wanted to appeal against one such penalty notice. Well, joining me now is Scott Dixon, the complaints resolver. Scott, great to have you back on BBC Radio London.
Good afternoon, Shay.
Look, you and I have spoken a number of times here on the show, and this particular case around penalty charge notices, one, it doesn't go away, but you just heard our reporter Vince Rogers there sharing his story. Do you think this might be a turning point, the fact that he himself has managed to find, through his investigations, a London Borough, Greenwich Council, has not contested any appeals?
It's astonishing, isn't it? And he's done everything right. And, bus lanes are an easy cash cow for local authorities, and they rely on motorists simply coughing up without lodging an appeal. And this is a great example of how local authorities just make up the rules as they go along and expect motorists to simply pay out without question. And I see this all the time, Shay, with bus lanes and bus gates where local authorities are non-compliant with the signs and road markings. And Vince did mention the traffic signs manual, and this is the Bible that local authorities are meant to adhere to. And it's Chapter 3, Section 9 in the Traffic Signs Manual Regulation Signs 2019, which applies to bus lanes and bus gates. And that sets out what's prescribed by local authorities on traffic signs and road markings. And it's designed to assist authorities in complying with the mandatory requirements set out in the Traffic Signs Regulations Directions 2016.
Okay.
And yeah, Vince said he's right. A bus lane is meant to have a 45-degree tapered line to filter traffic into an adjacent lane. And you're meant to be given advance warning by signs and by letters. And that bus lane is clearly non-compliant.
But can I ask you, just on the wider discussion, because you're very passionate about any motorist, if they have any kind of penalty notice, parking charge notice, penalty charge notice, that they should appeal it. Why are you so passionate around that, Scott, around going to appeal? Because some people just think, I don't want the hassle, I'm going to pay it. And also, you have a 50% discount for most of them. If you don't pay within that 2-week period, then it goes to full whack, and it's just extra money that's going to be spent.
Well, that's part of the problem, Shay. People just simply pay out without question, regardless of whether they think it's fair or not. And I would strongly urge all motorists to lodge a well-constructed appeal on all fines, regardless, because you've got more than a 50% chance of winning your case. And Transport for London overall, they only win 48% of their cases. And if it goes to an independent adjudicator, they will look at your case and they often spot errors that you've missed. And the local authorities may not even submit a defence. That's been proven with Greenwich Council. So, yeah, we're just seen as easy cash cows, and it's time to push back on what is a war of attrition. And perseverance breaks resistance every time. Don't give up. That's what I say,
And so when you are talking to people contact you around their complaints. Do they ask for help? Because the other thing is someone might be tuned in thinking, yeah, but I don't feel I could actually put my case forward for an appeal. I wouldn't know where to start. I wouldn't know the right words or terminology to use to appeal.
Well, the first thing I do is go onto Google Street Maps, like what Vince did there, and I scope the area to see, have I been given sufficient guidance to make an informed decision and avoid that bus lane? Or, for example, a parking fine, is the signage clear? More often than not, it isn't. So you use that as part of your evidence, and yeah, you just put it all together and lodge an appeal, just saying you haven't been given sufficient guidance to make an informed decision. The signs and road markings are not clear or they're not visible, and you screenshot from Google Street View and Google Street Maps, use that as part of the process. And yeah, it's just astonishing that Greenwich Council didn't even bother appealing, just didn't even bother contesting any fines for over a year.
So from on that other angle, if we could discuss that, maybe our listeners are not too aware, Scott, what do councils need to do once a dispute is in place? So if somebody does say, no, this is wrong, I want to dispute it, what do councils then need to do?
Well, councils need to put their case together and prove that everything is in place and that it is compliant with the traffic signs manual and the traffic signs regulations. They need the law cuts both ways. So if they're issuing fines, they need to prove that the fines are legitimate. So the onus is on them to prove their case against you. And I mean, Vince did a great job in looking through the London Tribunal's cases, because by doing so, you can gauge what chance you have of winning in which local authority you've been caught in. And
also, just finally, how, like, generally from the work that you've done as the complaints resolver, how hard is it to get out of a fine? Because some of them can, be quite costly, and it's an added cost that many people just right now cannot afford, whether it's road markings or signs, as you've mentioned, perhaps parking. So is it always worth putting that appeal through?
It is always worth lodging an appeal, because you have got more than a 50% chance of winning your case. And if you just take your time, do your homework, look at the traffic signs manual in this instance, Chapter 3, Section 9, look at the signs and the markings, look on Google Street View, and look through the London Tribunal's cases to see what chance you have of winning, and look for also look online to see if there's any other cases where people have spoken about it in different forums, because that can also give you different angles to approach with your defence.
Well, it's a lot for people to digest, but I know you've actually got a couple of books out. People can go to your website as well, can't they, Scott? What's the details?
Well, if you have a look on my website, thecomplaintsresolver.co.uk, I have actually got a blog on bus lane fines, and I speak about it on my blog. And there's also plenty of advice, not just on my website, but also in my books to help people push back on unfair fines.
Lovely speaking to you today, Scott. Thanks for joining me.
A pleasure, Shea. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Scott Dixon there, the complaints resolver. As he's mentioned, you can go directly to his website. It's thecomplaintsresolver.co.uk. But weigh in and share what your experience has been like. The parking fine, maybe you've been in the bus lane and not quite realised. Have you appealed the parking fine or the PCN? 0800 731 2000.